Like to welcome everyone to EOF Implementer Call number 55 on the 7th of August, 2024. A lot of agenda items relating to testing. We'll get there when we get there. One is a spec question, but the rest is mostly testing. But we'll go ahead and start with client updates. Besu implemented Fuzzer over the past 2 weeks. It was guided by Java coverage, and it's differential against the others. And I've had good overnight runs with EVM1 and Ref with no findings between the three of us, and I found some items in Geth and JavaScript. So that's some of the stuff that Besu's found in their development. Next is EVM1.
I think no updates on the implementation of VM1. We're kind of done, but also maybe others can share some on fuzzing as well. And the rest of the team is also involved in testing. Pavel, can you share on the fuzzing part? We cannot hear you. At least I cannot.
Yeah, your microphone's not coming through, Paul.
Yeah, it's like just noises, clicks.
How about we go to Ref and wait for Paul to fix his microphone?
Right side, Pavel found with his fuzzy some bugs that on verification that was fixed, and there was some unimplemented things there. That's mostly it. I still need to figure out that metrics and update the tests. I don't think I'm running East tests, so I need to check that later. Today, maybe tomorrow.
Okay. Do you run your tests by dropping the fixtures in a directory and running it? Is that the main way you run it, or do you have a tool that you can point at a file?
I'm pointing it to folder, basically. I basically downloaded Mario bundle of tests, and I'm running those.
Okay. Because I have some automation for the ones that'll run it from a CLI tool, but I haven't updated much of my automation. It wasn't very extensive. Any luck on Peter's audio situation?
Pavel's, right? You meant Pavel, correct?
Yeah, Paul, not Peter. Wasn't he the one that was going to talk about? Oh, he's
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. You're on mute, Pavel.
Not sure. Is it any better now?
It's good. Yeah.
Now, perfect, great. You're going to talk about EVM1 fuzzing?
Yes.
It's broken again.
Such bad luck. So is the fuzzing that the EVM1 runs, is that checked into any directory anywhere that people can run?
I don't know.
Okay. Powell's microphone is still very unhappy. We need Mike Dow. We need microphone guild, I guess.
Oh, he wrote in chat. Oh, actually, that's Dragon.
Okay, so there's the fuzzers that he runs.
Okay. It is on EOF branch. Yeah.
And this is just for the EOF validation, right?
Correct.
Okay. Because we got EOF validate, which is the newest. This is probably, we'll save this for testing actually. I don't see Geth on the call. I don't see Nethermind on the call. I don't see Ethereum JS on the call. Ethereum JS do have a couple of findings from the Java fuzzer. But they don't seem like, they seem like the findings that other clients have had. So they're nothing out of the ordinary, nothing truly bizarre. Geth has more findings. I've fixed some in a PR that I'm going to push to Marius when he's back from vacation. He's on vacation this week, but I haven't fixed all of them. I've been building other things. Paolo, do you think you got your mic fixed now?
I can
Doesn't
try
sound-
different ones.
Oh.
I have. This one working?
This one is working.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully when I close the settings on Zoom, it will still work.
Don't close them.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. So
Good.
tell us
So-
about the EVM1 Fuzzer.
Yes, so it's similar to Besu, except the coverage is taken from EVM1, REVM, and Besu is integrated on the side. So we don't have coverage, but we can ask it for validation. So I think I can confirm Besu, REVM, and EVM1 are in sync in this, and I need to update the mutator for the fuzzing because it's pretty bad. And yeah, and I think that's the story so far. About integrating others, I think we can do Go code with coverage and the others probably without coverage. But I think I will put the a baseline that the other projects needs to pass the existing tests. So at least have confirmation they are there, because I think we know that the Geth code is not great. And
Yeah.
so I'm not sure this really benefits. Yeah, but that definitely can be done. Also, there's option to export all these kind of generated tests into JSON. I'm not sure this is worth doing this, but that can be also kind of the one more like gate to cross to be included. But I plan to include everything.
And I honestly think any good fuzzing find probably indicates a testing blind spot. And it's usually the combinations you don't think of, like tripping the reverse jump and the forward jump with two are jumpies, two conditional jumps in between. That's one thing that got Besu and helped us find one implementation thing that we weren't doing correctly. But I think any good fuzzing find usually should be followed on with something added to the reference tests. Because if one client coded it wrong, the odds are other clients or future clients will make the same mistake.
Yeah. There's also this list of issue found so far. So it's kind of work in progress. So far we are collecting these as someone remember the link. It's on Epsilon EOF actually. So they need to be processed later and submitted to execution spec tests.
Yeah, so this is good fuzzing findings are being found here. So let's see, compiler updates, spec updates. Let's do some of this fuzzing stuff first before we go too deep. While we're on it. So if we find fuzzing stuff, we should post it here, but that also gets to some of the standards. I don't know the way to phrase it, but when we find bugs in pre-production code, it's generally fine. Security there's a security aspect for it. But if it's pre-production code, we can post it here. But if we find a bug in production code, we should probably have a narrower disclosure for operational security. So if we find a bug that is live in Geth or Besu or Nethermind or EVM1 that could be used on older versions of the code, that some of the stuff might show up as we do the fuzzing, we need to have a narrower scope. And I think there's a key-based disclosure, or we can disclose it privately. But when we're talking about code that we haven't shipped to mainnet and that's a new feature, I don't think we have the same risk of just disclosing all the bugs that we find. So eventually this will shift. We will need to have more limited disclosure on some of these, but for now, we can just disclose freely anything that is an EOF specific bug. And so that's what these will be filling up. Okay. So I think that's all the client teams. Go ahead.
There's one more thing about fuzzing. So this is the issue that I'm hitting probably with every project, is that my expectation is that we kind of validate in runtime mode. I think that comes from the fact the runtime containers are simpler, and that's also how the validation tests are organized, to my understanding. But I think maybe that's actually the bad decision to do it this way, because that's actually not something we'll have in a client, because the client will always validate in init code, because that's because we only validate the EOF transactions, right? So we always kind of validate top level starting from init code. So I wonder if
we also need to validate Genesis files. So if you get a Genesis file with an existing EOF contract, we need to validate and parse that as well, I believe.
Yes,
so,
it's true. But maybe for fuzzing, it's actually better to switch to init code. I'm not sure if you have opinion. So far that's fixed, but I had to kind of work around it a bit for both Besu and REVM, and we're kind of hitting a bit more complicated entry point for that. So I'm not sure that's a good idea, but yeah. So I don't know if you have any suggestions. I was thinking maybe there's also a way to actually combine these two somehow. Let's say you pass an input for validation, and you get, instead of specifying what the type is, you get this as the answer, and then you can compare if they agree. Or it's not like exactly how EVM is implemented, but EVM1 is implemented. But yeah, I have this issue. Probably I will not do any actively try to change it, but I wanted to mention that. And if you have strong opinions that we should actually change the validation mode by default for fuzzing, I can also do this.
You should probably fuzz both input mode and non-input mode, non-init code mode. But that creates difficulties in fuzzing, because there's a lot more different ways that you can be invalid with init code and bring everyone into init code failure. So that's something we'll need to think about over the week. I can add a flag to basis code validate to expect init code, and I can do some runs where we start from init code. Getting the seed, getting the initial corpus for init codes is going to be what's difficult, but that should be fine. We should be able to figure that out.
Yeah, there's at least a flag in the JSON tests that specifies this, and this runtime by default, but you can specify init code. Also, for Besu, I kind of fixed that by just adding some new lines to Java, but I think that's done. So it's not something I need directly right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of repeating pattern that when I try to find the entry point for the validation in other projects, it's a bit difficult to specify it sometimes, and I kind of want to make sure that we fuzz something that is then directly used in a bigger client implementation, not something that is kind of internal API to something that it's not used.
So like a transaction fuzzer, we want to spam the transactions. Mario?
Yeah, this is unrelated to fuzzing, but I wanted to mention that we also need to generate status for the container runtime validation test that we have. Basically just wrapping the runtime container into an init code, and then use that as the transaction counter creation data. Just want to mention that we don't want to miss this coverage because yeah, as you say, most of the container validation in an actual chain is going to happen during init code. So yeah, I think we should do this. Is in my to-do list. I just haven't gotten the time to do it yet.
Okay. Cool. So let's table testing for now, come back to it further down the discussion. Do compiler and spec updates. I don't see any compiler people online. There's no updates to the Solidity PLC, I take it.
I know
So
Radek's
given-
working on it. Radek from Epsilon. So there's some progress, but he's not here.
Okay.
I think the situation for Solidity is that the implementation has been kind of submitted as a pull request and is under review. And yeah, so that's the main thing. There are some optimizations that are probably a lot of optimizations that has been disabled because EOF. So they also work on a way to re-enable some optimizations.
Yep.
That had to be disabled because they're not like directly compatible with EOF. And I think, and finally, we want to make a EVM1 release and EVMC release so that Solidity can update this dependency that they use for testing, and then that will be like separate work that we kind of need to put in between the EOF is merged. But yeah, I think that the end goal is to actually merge this code to the main branch.
Okay. Okay. So I think next we have spec. And there's a couple of things. First, we need to figure out contract detection. And then I think I had on there some tracing changes. So first, contract detection. Alex isn't here yet, but he did post some stuff to Discord. Basically, we got 6 options to go around it. And there doesn't seem to be much excitement around some of the more larger changes like multiple return codes, multiple return items on the stack, features like this. And really, what a lot of the interest is around either A, completely punting for the first release of EOF and coming back later, or B, reintroducing ext code size, or C, changing ext code size in something like is contract. Yeah. Any comments on the state of that? Do we want to fix on the design, or honestly, a lot of the speed we're going, the do nothing inertia is getting a lot of weight behind it.
Well, the do nothing has the big advantage that we can forward fix it.
Right. We can fix it with a compatible change in the hard fork after EOF. We can do a better time evaluating these options, prototyping them, seeing how they would work. Because if we bring any of the other fixes in, we have to live with them forever. Even if they're the right fix, that would be fine. But if we bring in the wrong fix, then it's a change that can't be undone. The not supporting 721 and 1155 contracts on the first pass is the most undoable of the options. And it's also got the potential of being the correct option if account abstraction really gains traction. But that would basically preclude EOAs from holding some 721 and 1155 contracts, but that might be acceptable if AA is really going to take off.
I mean, to comment on that, 721 and 1155, right? They can still, I mean, we're not making them impossible. We're just either they need to be written in legacy EVM and deployed as such, or they need to call out into a legacy contract, which does the ext code size or whatever they need for them. So it's still possible. They just need to pay, I don't know, extra. Right? Or am I wrong on this? Hello?
Hello, I'm writing this down.
Okay. Again? You're writing it down. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's a third option, right? They can somehow not use the safe transfer from.
Right.
But I guess when we are sticking to principles, then I mean, either a contract satisfies the interface, the standard or not.
All the calls would just fail. I mean, yeah, I mean the interface 721's got a lot of optional calls, but all the major markets require safe transfer from if you want to make your NFT marketable. So it's practically a requirement. We can't do if we don't do the return code changes now, we can't do them in the future. But ASIC and Discord said that the Unix standard is 0 means success and anything non-zero means failure. And there's really no distinguishment between success types. So we would move transferring money to an EOA into a failure mode if we did that from the standard. But I think the return code changes are what had a lot of resistance. I do think we should probably just stick with the do nothing for now, since it's something we can fix later with the lead of the others. I think is contract or ext code size was something we could bring back into the future. So I'm fairly comfortable just sticking with the spec we have, unless there's any call for action on that. Now, whether that's going to be in Osaka or Amsterdam remains to be seen. If you called in all core devs a couple weeks ago or last week, there's some concern about post-quantum cryptography and Verkle, so that might be shaking up the schedule. So anything in the future, there is no promise it'll ever show up, and there's also no promise that it won't show up. So it's just an unknown there. Okay. Moving on from contract detection, I think the soft answer is
Sorry, sounds funny.
okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is tracing changes. And this is going to become kind of an issue when we go into execution fuzzing. There's a couple of features that we're adding in EOF that aren't, and this is the EIP, what is the, there's a standard tracing API that most clients follow. 3155. And this specifies most clients spit code out like this, and this is what a standard trace looks like. And this is what a lot of the fuzzers fuzz off of. But we're adding a couple of features that I think we need to consider updating. So right now it's actually stagnant, it's not final. I'll probably, if I do a change to this, I'll change this to a living instead of a draft. But there's a couple of fields that I think we need to consider adding to this trace. We're going to need code section, and I think we're also going to need the immediate arguments. Because I also know that tracing, some ZK systems, they arithmetize the trace. They don't actually run the EVM. Someone else runs the EVM, produces a trace, and they arithmetize the trace and prove that it's consistent. So they'll need this information to do ZK out of, if they continue to do tracing as their solution, they'll need this information to figure out, what, not a push, but like, the call F, what section 2 we're going with call F. Pooja, you raised a hand?
Yes, can you please repeat the EAP number and is it actually being used by the client? I don't like that it is in stagnant status. I might want to check with the authors and push it towards, whatever active status it should be.
So it's
I don't-
3155, and I think the reason it got swept into stagnant is because it's not final. All of the clients have updated it, and to various degrees, and we have this, and it's just, I bet Martin and Marius just they're not very attentive to process things on this, so they didn't push it to final. But it's not consensus critical, I think, is one aspect for it. You can have a consensus client or an execution client that doesn't have this. This is just a tool that is being used for standardizing testing.
Sure, I would try to get in touch with Martin and Marius and try to move this proposal out of stagnant if it is being used by most of the clients.
Right. What status would you recommend? Would living be appropriate for this?
I think that would depend upon EAP editors, given any of the interface proposals are never been in living status. I highly doubt that is possible, but moving to a final status can be very much possible.
Okay, because the problem that I have with final status is the changes we're discussing now, where there's a new feature where we need to update it. All of a sudden, we're going to have a new EIP number for the tracing standard for something that's basically the same. And I think this is like the poster child for versioned EIPs. It is this tracing, but then the EIP editors are going to impose their will and say, I'm going to go on a rant. I should stop about. I really don't like the way the EIP editors govern this, so I'll just stop there.
No worries. I mean, like the general solution right here is like if you think that after it being final, we might want to add one of the EIPs to the list, there could be a new EIP with the required section as 3155, and this true line of change would be there, and that can move faster. Because this has already been here, I see the number 31. That means it is pretty old proposal, and I can understand get teams are sometimes need some support to move the proposals to different status. But I hope going forward, there should not be a challenge moving proposals. Please reach out to me, ping me, or even join the editing office hour. We will push the proposal as soon as possible.
So what's your recommendation? Should I add the EOF stuff here, or should I just do a new EIP for EOF tracing?
It would be a good idea to have a new proposal because I would want to see EOF moving with the Pectra upgrade. I don't know how much time would this proposal take to move into the following directions. I mean, like the next status. There are two ways to go about it. Either the initial authors have to open a new pull request. I can make sure that they get merged as soon as possible. But if either of these authors are not open to the idea, we might want to add someone as a co-author. You can be added as a co-author or champion for the proposal. And then when you create a pull request, we will move it forward.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm fairly certain Martin and Marius have given up on EIPs.
Oh, if you would
So-
want to propose yourself as a champion or co-author for proposal, the only requirement would be for them to approve you as a co-author, and then from there you can take it forward. And I'm happy to help push it to the next step.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move the we'll move this process discussion elsewhere. But what I want to discuss is get people's temperature check for some of the changes I want to put into the EOF version. Add an immediate that would post immediates. This would show up for pushes, call lefts, anything that has an immediate. Add a section number, and then PC, whether we do 0 from section or 0 from container. That's the biggest open question I have there, is what people think about that. Andre and Dragon, do you have much opinions, or Peter or Powell?
I'm thinking PC should be relative, because PC together with this section are uniquely identified location. Otherwise, it's a bit redundant. If PC is absolute, then section is kind of not needed. Yeah.
Okay, 0 to section. Okay.
It kind of depends, like, you want like efficiency or just readability, because like the
Right.
same what Andrew said, kind of because the code sections are adjusted to each other, it kind of the PC started from section 1 kind of works for all of them. You just need to figure out which section are you in outside of the trace, right? Maybe that's not desirable, I don't know. Then usually these traces are not really efficient in terms of there's a lot of redundant information, and sometimes it's kind
Right.
of hard to actually have all of it.
So I guess that leads into my next question, is some of the musts. So whenever I do my tracing and I test it out, I actually only pick out the PC, the gas cost, the top item of the stack, and the memory size when I do my diffing, because those are the most reliable ones that are consistent across clients. Some clients will do basically used to just do not the for calls, they used to do the gas that did not include the stipend. Now we changed that because Linnea needs it. But gas cost, I've been seeing get spitting out 2 lines for the same opcode, one static and one dynamic for gas cost, which is going to cause fuzzing issues. And then, yeah. So, what required fields? So one of the things I want to do is make sure that we have gas costs have a specific meaning. It'd be the gas stipend, gas must be gas available to the operation, and the PC section must be present and correct. So the gas that's available to your call must always be that value. I think these are the 2 musts we must put in for tracing correct, for using these for fuzzing. Any other people been using these traces and have opinions on it?
Well,
Just for
I know
debugging mostly.
this Go EVM Lab fuzzing. They
EVM
also
Lab,
had
yeah.
They also had issue with gas, so I think for some of the products they just ignore it because it's not consistent across these
Gas
operations.
cost.
For
Yeah,
Go
I don't know. It's
EVM,
like always. We had number of discussions about it, what exact meaning is, and it's like for EVM1, for example, it's not always practical to have the full gas cost, and I mean it's doable. I plan to actually like make it consistent, and I plan to compare it with GEF mostly. It can be any other project to find
Okay.
differences and then fix that. The calls are kind of separate topic to that. Like, it's like, is the gas put to the caller is actually cost or not? I think we kind of on the position that it's not, because gas cost is something that is kind of burned by the instruction, so it's not available to anything else. It's just gone. But I'm not sure this is consistent with what the other project actually put there, and I think that's we can step by step fix this and that, but it's kind of overwhelming process considering that goes to EP or something.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want the section thing, I'm fine with that. I'd probably put shorter names, but that's the only comment I have.
There was a request from Go EVM Lab to have no memory and maybe even no stack. No memory for sure, because repeating memory in the traces in JSON can be very performant. It will take a lot of time. I'm not sure about no stack, no memory for sure, but
No memory
yeah.
for sure. That's I mean, no stack. Maybe we could just have this top stack item.
Yeah, I was also like talking about it. Like if you only have the top stack item, or even only for the instructions to actually put new value on the stack, you can put one item, and for the others, actually, you can skip it.
Yeah,
It's
you can
enough
derive
to
the
kind
stack
of-
state from there. Yeah.
You can kind of only having a JSON, you can figure it out what's going on. So you can, like for example, Go EVM Lab has this kind of debugging tool that you just take a trace and then you have the interface that you can pretend you're actually debugging existing program, and you can step in, step out, and like step over different instructions. Yeah, so I think I'm open to also, because maybe it's enough to just put like some number of top stack items, or we can decide there's like a marker that says there's more stack items, but they are not just included in the JSON.
Okay. So I'll drop a mock of this. We can discuss it online or in 2 weeks again. I think we need to move on from this for a time. We got a few other issues. Yeah, so to drop a comment in this thread if you have anything else to add. Let's go to testing. Mario, what's some of your testing? What's the top of your mind for testing?
Okay, so I think, can we go to the checklist that you posted? I think there was some interesting. Yeah, so I can address kurtosis first. So I think for the time being, kurtosis, I wouldn't think that this is absolutely necessary. What we can do instead of kurtosis is just using East's consume engine tool. Basically, what this does is it relies on Hive, but Hive spawns the client, and basically we send every single test that we have using this thing via the engine API. There's not much difference between this and kurtosis. Well, the difference being that kurtosis does spawn the consensus client to do this, but I think it's too much overhead for the spot that we currently are in. I don't think we're gonna find any significant differences between consume engine and kurtosis. The only thing that comes to mind that maybe kurtosis could maybe point out is that, for example, if we do EOF calls to the system contracts that are being introduced in Prague. So, for example, the deposit contract or the or what else? The withdrawal request contract. Maybe if the call comes from an EOF contract, maybe there could be some interesting things that could come up when kurtosis spawns the consensus client. But I really don't think it's worth the effort of setting up kurtosis at the moment. So yeah, coming back to the consume engine, I think consume engine does everything that we need so far. And it's just a matter of running every single test that we have written for EOF using consume engine. Assertors also coming back to the the point of the East test that we have. I think if we could write some EIP interactions between, for example, the deposits EIP and EOF, which is really easy since with the markers that we included, I'll link the PR in a moment. But anyway, I think the assertors it's just free for us if we run the yeast tests in the devnets in the devnets as we have it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeast can produce assertors. Exactly. That's
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Any testing blind spots you're worried about?
So yeah, basically, I think we should update the checklist. And the main reason is that I think a lot of the tests, if not all of them, are currently implemented in yeast. But mainly what I would like for us to have ready for next ACDE is just quantify the progress. So what percentage of the checklist that we have is currently implemented, which I think could be close to 100%. And most importantly, I would like to go over the EIPs and just make sure that every single test case is actually in the checklist to begin with. I haven't got enough time yet to do this, but I will try to do this in this week before ACDs, so we can have an updated checklist and also missing test cases from the checklist also, and just basically come up with a percentage of readiness regarding spec tests. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So how do we feel about, I know Tim was pushing this. Do we think we're ready to add EOF to testnet 3, the next testnet?
Is that a question for me or for everyone?
For you or for everyone? You could start and everyone could chime in.
I mean,
think
I can say, okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think I'll have a better opinion once I go through the checklist and the in the rest of the APIs more thoroughly. Maybe in the next couple of days. I will, but listen, anyone else can chime in.
Okay. I think Peter was going to talk.
Yeah, so recently we've put out a PR to add a sort of testing matrix, which is clients versus different kinds of tests that we have now. Mainly to make sure that given clients are passing the tests that we have before we proceed into fuzzing, but this also applies to devnets, I guess. So it should be like I guess maybe the most basic checklist that we can tick off right now. So in there we want to gather information whether given client passes a given version of test that we have right now.
Do we need to be 100% before we go to a devnet? I mean, what's the advantages and disadvantages?
I don't know. I mean, for fuzzing, it makes at least, the sense is that we don't find issues that are covered already, but not used. I mean, sorry. So the fuzzing doesn't pick up issues that are covered by tests, but the client doesn't run those tests.
Right.
I think it doesn't make sense for a client to join a devnet if it doesn't pass the tests, or don't even run it. So that is kind of. But I'm not sure how much does it matter, right? Because it's not like every client has to join at the same time. But maybe we should make it clear that that's kind of prerequisites for joining devnet is to pass the test first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say it's not only the yeast test, but also the Ethereum/tests where some of the coverage is right now. And I mean, as an extra is the VM1 tests, which slowly are being migrated over to yeast, but still not there.
So
In
I think
general,
I think it's important for to have at least most of the tests in yeast. If there's any outstanding tests that are important that are only in Ethereum tests, those we cannot run them with Consume Engine. And I think it's important that we run with Consume Engine. And so if you guys can think about any test scenarios that are missing from East that need to be ported to the Ethereum test, I think I will like for us to make the push to port them over.
Yeah, that's definitely our goal, but I think we are moving a bit slowly towards this. So yeah, definitely there's even there's even like EAPs, like full EAPs that are not covered yet.
For DevNet 3, it's maybe best to focus on AIP 7702 because there are additional changes that needs to be implemented. I would not like to get in a situation where EOF is blocking other AIPs, but I don't know if other clients started implementing it.
So another thing I'm noticing is 7702 is very much going with the test and prod approach, because only Mario's written reference tests for it. None of the other 7702 implementers have gone for it. Again, holding us to a different standard, but we'll run with it. But I think that's a valid point. We don't want to cause 7702 problems. But at some point we need to get into DevNet and we need to join it. So maybe we can present that, we'll join when 7702 is stable. One question, which clients are ready that have a flag and could join a testnet today?
Rhett
and Besu. Okay. So I mean, we get two. That's really what we need to run a DevNet. Okay. How about Aragon 3? How close are they to participating in tests like this?
I think it's unclear if they will. So
Okay.
I think it's still unclear if Aragon 3 will be ready for Pectra. So I think they are discussing if they are able to switch to Aragon 3 architecture for Pectra, so kind of replacing Aragon 2 or not. But I think the main Pectra work is done still in Aragon 2, which is stable, instead of these.
And is Aragon 2 part of these DevNets right now?
I don't know.
Okay.
But
I think they have a lot of issues on DevNet 2. They were not following, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
But at least they are trying, right?
Right.
Okay, so I think that, like, it's probably unless this will change, I think the Aragon 2 is the client that we are expecting to be in DevNets.
Okay. Any other general commentary or questions about where we're at? Anything anyone else wants to say, or any directions they think we're missing? Okay. August is here. People will be on vacation, but I'm fairly certain September will be kind of a crunch time to make sure we can get into the dev nets and be ready for the discussions of when they start getting seriously talking about flipping test nets is when they're going to have to keep or cut certain features. So that's going to be kind of a crunch time for us. So we'll need to have everything ready. I'm probably going to work on the tracing spec, and then I'm going to work on trying to write a Besu execution fuzzer. So hopefully we'll have better signal there. But if anybody else has experience writing EVM fuzzers or could, modify Marius's to work with EOF, that would be some good stuff to do. Any other comments? Cool. I'd like to thank everyone for calling in.
Just
Oh, go ahead.
last thing, we should ask Get Nethermine on ACDE about the EOF progress because they're not like appearing here, and
Right.
it would be good to
So-
know where they are.
Yeah, I know Marius is on vacation. I'm a bit surprised Nethermind didn't show up. I was expecting them to show up, but yeah, we should pressure them for status and
Yeah.
make it. I mean, they're going to complain that it's not being thoroughly tested, but it is being tested. We need to make sure that if it's not progressing, it's clear why it's not progressing and what it is. So, all right, maybe I'll ping them. We should ping them also on Discord. Cool.
Great.
Well, if there's nothing else, I'll give everyone 3 whole minutes back. Thanks for calling in.